Good evening. Welcome to SVN3E Environmental Science. I'm Wendy Espana, and I am the teacher for this course. We've been working on contaminants, a lot of work on contaminants, and we're going to wrap that up tonight. Environmental contaminants, things that make us sick. Some of the things that make us sick we put in the air ourselves. Through factories, driving vehicles, heating our homes, burning things. Some of the things go in the atmosphere are from or maybe not even the atmosphere, but the water and the soil, perhaps, are chemicals we put in to help us with something else. They end up causing issues. Sometimes it's industrial, like big factories producing smoke from making a product or putting, contaminated water in, which we know happened in a nearby community where they were putting mercury in and getting Minamata disease afterwards. And there's all sorts of examples, and we've done all the examples, and then we've looked also at what happens with pathogens, microbes. We've called them different things. They're bacteria, viruses, or microbes are small, like parasites, little uh, micro animals, microbes we call those, that can make us sick, that can get also into our water, our soil, our air. And we've looked at so many examples, and I think that one of the beauties of this course is that we do that. We look at all the examples of all the different ways that we can put contaminants into the three spheres. Remember, the three spheres are water, air, and soil, and we look at how those can get contaminated. All right. And sometimes it's nature. There's certain viruses, illnesses that we get, and it's just caused by nature. So we've looked at all those contaminants. And then we started looking at the human body. We looked at the different systems. We started, I believe, with the respiratory, our lungs, and all the different parts associated with that, and how we get oxygen to all our cells, and how we remove carbon dioxide, and water is another thing that comes out when we breathe out. We looked at our digestive system. That's when we eat food, how it gets broken down into small, so small that you can't see those in a microscope, and they go into our body and into our stomach and through our intestines, and all the different ways that can that happens, and how the nutrients get into our body. We looked at the circulatory system, which is our heart pumping blood to and from the lungs that are putting, remember, the oxygen into the blood and taking out the carbon dioxide. And so the heart's pumping that blood. It's also pumping blood to the small intestine where the nutrients are being produced from the villi. And it's the alveoli in the lungs, are the small lung sacs. The villi are the finger-like projections on the lining of the small intestine, that where the nutrients get absorbed into the blood. Those go into what's called the capillaries. The capillaries connect the arteries. Those are the vessels that take blood away from the heart. I always remember, because artery starts with A and away. That's how you memorize that. And it takes blood away from the heart. It connects smaller and smaller until it gets to the capillaries. That's where all the exchange takes place, whether it's oxygen and carbon dioxide and water, or whether it's nutrients or other waste products coming out. And so that all happens in the capillaries, which then lead to the veins, and the veins bring all of the waste products back to where they need to go. Remember, we can have the liver, which cleans out waste products from the blood, and we also have the kidneys, another filter system. and then those waste products get removed from the body in various ways. We have the lymphatic system, which is another way that we keep ourselves healthy, is from the lymph nodes and the spleen. The spleen produces the white blood cells, which help to destroy bacteria, viruses that are attacking our body. And then once we talked about the systems and how they're affected by these environmental contaminants, we then turned around and started talking about how each system is able to protect itself from the contaminants. It's an the human body is an amazing system, and they have all sorts of mechanisms. The skin is one way that we keep out lots of pathogens and contaminants and all of that. However, at the same time, things can absorb through the skin, so we do have to be careful. We talked about DEET, that's the chemical in bug sprays, and how it's not good to have that absorbed into your body, so that if you use DEET, you should use it on over top of clothing. We have all sorts of different ways. We talked about the the white blood cells that destroy pathogens. Those are and we've already discussed lots of pathogens, but the viruses, the bacteria, the small microbes that come in to the body. We can ingest them as well, go through the digestive system. We can eat something, we can inhale something that could go through the respiratory system. We can have it injected through like a cut or an injection, actually, into the bloodstream, right through the skin, and absorption through the skin. And I think I already said inhaled through the respiratory system. Okay, and then we know that your body goes into action once they are in you. In the stomach, there is stomach acid that tries to, kill any pathogens that get that far. In the blood, we have the white blood cells working. Sometimes we still get sick, and when that happens, we develop what's called antibodies. And the antibodies help our body to remember the virus that we just had that came into our body, and produces these antibodies to be able to fight it. So the next time we get sick with the same illness, then we are all prepared, because it is set for the virus, and when the virus enters our body, the antibodies are there and we don't get sick again. And that's if we got that through an illness. For instance, we got the chickenpox. The next time we're exposed to the chickenpox virus, we don't get sick, because our antibodies go into action and they kill the chickenpox virus. However, in some cases, people get the vaccine. Now there's a chickenpox vaccine. They get the vaccine. That's an artificial way of getting immunized. We call it immunization, when you are protected against the disease, the virus or the bacteria, whatever you're getting immunized against. And once we're immunized, we have protection against that, because now we've placed the microbe or the virus or whatever in our body. The antibodies were produced, and now we're all set. We might get a little sick. We know with the COVID vaccines that we got a little sick, felt a little bit for a day or two that we had COVID, but you do not develop full-blown COVID. You don't have any of the effects that the full-blown disease. It's a milder effect. And then last class, we also talked about malaria. Malaria is a disease caused by the malaria parasite. It's passed through mosquito bites. So we were talking about how you need to wear long sleeves, long pants if you're in an area where they do have malaria. But with malaria, unlike a vaccine, what you take is medicine. You take medicine and it can make you a little bit sick. There's some side effects to the malarial medicine. But once you take that medicine, if you get malaria, you don't get sick. The medicine kills the malaria parasite, and you are fine when you go on your vacation. So it's worth a little bit of being uncomfortable, because eventually, when you're on your vacation, you can go have a good time and you're not going to get sick if you get bit. Okay, so that was, we also got a little bit into some of the ways of reducing getting sick. I guess we talked mostly about sunscreens and wearing proper clothing, and because of the danger of the sun. The sun has good stuff in it. We would not have be alive if it wasn't for the sun. However, it also has some some damaging rays that come, UV rays, and we have to be protected about against those if we're out in the sun. So we talked about that last time as well. So tonight we are wrapping up our work on environmental contaminants. So it's been quite a few lessons, quite a few nights that we've talked about environmental contaminants, and now tonight it is our last lesson on it. On the screen, I have page 9 of 27 of Unit 3. And so this is the last lesson on looking at environmental contaminants and looking at how to keep ourselves healthy when it comes to them. Okay, so we're going to go down here to page 10. You'll see that there's two learning goals. Let's read those first. Lesson 12 learning goals. Students will be able to describe safe food handling methods and practices, and describe the effects contaminated air quality in homes and suggest strategies for recovery. Okay, so we're actually going to go over to the textbook. We'll come back to the key questions after, so just give me a minute and I will get those on the screen. We're in the textbook on page 94. All right, page 94, we're on lesson 3.5 from the textbook, and this is our last night on environmental contaminants. All right, 3.5 is on personal hygiene and household cleanliness, like we said earlier, and it's known as lesson 12. Okay, so it says in the previous section we learned about vaccines. Oh, right, the respirators. Respirators fell into two categories. Remember, there was the ones that you just breathe out, and there's filters that breathe in, and there's filters that filter the air, and then you breathe back out. And there's nothing else, that's just it. It's a filtering system, so when you breathe in, you're going to get nice clean air. There was another type of respirator that had an oxygen tank, and it was on your back, say, and when you were breathing in and out, the oxygen tank was giving you the air, and then you were breathing it back out. There's some fancier ones where they actually, when you breathe out the air, it cleans it and recycles it. We also talked about that. So there was lots of information on keeping your respiratory system clean or healthy by keeping it clean. Okay, those are kind of more high tech and vaccines for sure, more high tech than what we're going to talk about tonight. Tonight we're going to talk about how to keep your self clean in your house, okay, and at home. Like nothing fancy dancy that you have to go to the doctor or anything for. So we know from COVID that one of the number one ways to keep ourselves healthy was to wash our hands. So that's the first one on the list. So these are easier, not easier, but just more simpler methods of how to keep ourselves healthy is what we're going to do tonight. So washing our hands is the first one. Okay. It's the washing your hands is the most effective way to prevent getting infectious diseases. Anytime you're going to cook or eat anything, um, you should clean your hands. There are bacterias, viruses that cause diseases, and they're all over any surface that you touch, especially if it's a surface that a lot of other people are touching. So if you think about your day, if you're touching a doorknob, you're touching some place, you're going in and out of a place that many people are going in and out of, a doorknob many people are touching, you want to make sure that after you've touched that, you go and wash your hands properly. Um, like it's a pen somewhere, everybody's using the same pen to sign in or out or to sign something. Um, like the bank, the post office, I don't want to call anybody out, but just places like that. You want to make sure that you go and wash your hands after touching that because maybe somebody who is sick has touched it and now you've touched it and now you could spread it to another person, or you could touch your own mouth. It could go in your mouth, food you're eating, or just putting your hand in your mouth. It could go in your eyes. Remember, we talked about how the membrane of the eyes, the skin covering your eyes is very thin, and it's an easy way to get viruses, or even your nose, any parts of your body like that where you can go into your respiratory, digestive, into your circulatory system. And that's how diseases are spread around our body, right? We get the virus into our bloodstream, and blood goes all over the body, and then that's how we get sick. Okay, so you should wash your hands before you make a meal, before you eat a meal. You should always wash your hands. After you go to the washroom, our feces and urine are waste products. That means you're getting rid of bacteria, parasites, viruses, things that your body is getting rid of. Those are waste materials, and so definitely after you use the washroom, you want to make sure your hands are nice and clean. Pets. Pets carry all sorts of things, and I don't know how your pets act, but the pets out at where I live roll around in just about anything. They lick themselves. They're so pets. If you are, petting an animal, definitely you should go wash your hands. There's all sorts of other things with that too, but that's one. After you blow your nose, you cough, you sneeze. There's one other one, and that's or in our area. There's an illness, blastomycosis. I don't know if you've heard of that one, but you can get that from now. You can get it from inhaling. It can be an airborne fungus, and so you can get it from inhaling, but you can also get it from having your hands in soil, in decaying wood, wherever the fungus is growing in the bush. So if you go out cutting wood or you do anything like those activities, it's really important to either wear gloves when you're doing it, or if you do touch anything, scrub your hands very well. Okay, so what's the rules for scrubbing our hands? There were tons and tons of these all over during COVID. So we know that you take off all your jewelry and wet your hands first, then put soap in your hands. Remember, we just use regular soap. We don't need any fancy soap. And you scrub your hands for about 20 seconds. And remember, you should do the fronts, the backs, between your fingers and under your fingernails as much as possible. Page 94, figure 3.30's got a really great diagram of this. And 20 seconds, remember, sing happy birthday. I still do that every time I wash my hands. I got that in COVID. So we sing happy birthday, and that seems to be a good length of time. Then for about 10 seconds, give your hands a really good rinse. Don't touch the tap with your hands, especially if you're in public bathroom of any sort. You want to get a paper towel and use your paper towel to turn that off, or you're just touching a surface that lots of people have already touched and may not be clean. Once your hands are nice and rinsed. Step 5 is to dry them. So you want to make sure that you're drying them with a clean towel, especially if somebody in the house was sick, because then again, you're just the person's sick hands have been on the towel and they're just transferring that to you. You could also use a air dryer. I don't mind an air dryer, but I have somebody in my family who insists they are not healthy. So let's look up and see what it says. Are air dryers healthy? And see, I like mine. They say they're less hygienic than paper towels. They can suck up and spread bacteria from the air and poorly washed hands. So they can draw in germs from the restroom and then put them back into your hands. Okay, so sometimes you don't have any choice. Um, my family member doesn't dry their hands on the hair dryer, they'll just dry them on their clothing or whatever. And so I don't know, maybe they did know what they were talking about. I thought I was going to look that up and it was not going to be an issue. Okay. Um, you also want warm water. Okay, so soap and warm water. The reason for the warm water is that it will get at grease and dirt that may contain the germs. So you want to be careful that you're using nice warm water because it'll cut down the oil in the dirt and that'll make it better to have it come off the grease. Okay, so what about antibacterial soaps? So experts during COVID all said you do not need antibacterial soap. All you needed was just soap, just hand soap or whatever you're using, and that they are no better at preventing illnesses than the antibacterial soaps are no better at fighting illnesses than regular soaps are. And so what's happened is that many people now have been using antibacterial soaps, other antibacterial products too, not just soaps, but in particular antibacterial soaps. And what has happened is some of the bacteria start to develop an immunity themselves, an antibiotic resistance to different antibiotic drugs and disinfectants. If that happens, what that means is that the antibacterial soap or the antibacterial disinfectant, whatever it is you're using, might no longer work on some bacteria. And we know that this can be very bad if you have flesh-eating disease. There's many diseases now that you can get in hospitals. Let's look at what an example of a hospital disease. There's lots of them now. Let's see what it says. Is let's see, hospital acquired infection is what it's called, that patients get while they're in the hospital. So they say what happens is that sometimes patients are more vulnerable because of weakened immune systems, and so sometimes that's why they do develop. C. diff is the one that most people might have heard one. It's a gastrointestinal infection that you get in hospitals, and it can cause severe diarrhea. And severe diarrhea, depending on how sick the person is, can be very dangerous because what it does is it saps you of your nutrients and your liquids. And so it can be very dangerous, especially if somebody's maybe elderly or really little. That type of stuff can be more dangerous. If you don't have soap, then you can use alcohol-based hand cleaner. They don't have antibiotics, but but alcohol will kill bacteria. It'll kill both good and bad bacteria. Okay, so an alcohol-based hand cleaner is another, having the little, everybody's got them nowadays in their backpack or their purse or wherever. I've got one in mine, and it's hand sanitizer gel, and it says kills 99.9% of germs without water. Its active ingredient is ethyl alcohol, 70%, which is an antiseptic skin cleanser. It doesn't say what the other 30% is, but I would guess it's just probably some water mixed in with it. Maybe something in the gel, like an aloe vera or something, doesn't say. But yeah, you can use alcohol. That will kill, but it kills both good and bad, right? Thing is, with any of these, is you sometimes kill the good along with it. So, what else can we do just besides washing our hands to stop germs? And these are good things you can do at home. You can do them at work. You can do them in school. These are all good no matter where you are. Disinfect your kitchen sink and counters daily using bleach, ammonia, alcohol, or vinegar-based cleaners. Cleaning with soap will remove the dirt. Disinfectants will kill the germs. So you want to disinfect. There's lots of natural ones if you're not into using bleach or ammonia or any of the stronger disinfectants. There's lots of natural ones. Along with the kitchen sink and counters, I would include in that cutting boards. You really need to put your cutting board, like if you have a dishwasher that you can use to disinfect, dishwashers are great. They can disinfect your cutting board, but definitely giving it a good scrub with a disinfectant is very important for cutting boards because raw meats can really cause different types of bacteria to grow. Okay, this one says regularly disinfect your bathroom, including doorknobs and faucets. So we just finished talking about the doorknobs and faucets, how if you touch them after having nice clean hands, they can just get your hands dirty all over again. So disinfect your bathroom. Lots of people in COVID as well started using the disinfectant wipes. Those are nice. So you can just wipe everything down. And then even after doing that, though, you should still, after washing your hands, still try not to touch anything with your nice clean hands when you leave the bathroom. Regularly disinfect your desk and computer keyboard. Avoid eating at your desk. So I have done this with classes and watched classes do this. Keyboards are one of the dirtiest things, especially a communal keyboard that everybody uses. After touching a keyboard that everybody has used, you really need to go and wash your hands and not sit there and then eat your lunch at the same place. Give everything a wipe with a disinfectant wipe before eating your food. Keep your hands away from your eyes, nose, and mouth. This was a biggie in COVID that we were taught. Don't put your finger and rub your eye unless it's nice and clean. I suppose I just think it's a good practice just not to do it. Touch inside your nose or your mouth. All those places are just ways that you're putting the pathogen or the germs right into your different systems and a blood system, your respiratory system, your digestive system. And that's a great way to be spreading a pathogen and putting it into your body. Cough or sneeze into your arm instead of into your hands. Actually, what we say now is cough or sneeze into your elbow. So I think most people do that. I don't think unless you're really little or really old and you don't know any better. But if you're gonna cough, then pull your elbow over your face and cough or sneeze into your arm. Here we go, right here. Do not share pens, cups, glasses, dishes, or cutlery. This can be hard sometimes depending on when you work. I know for me, I lose pens all day, I gather pens all day, but it's really a good idea to take a wipe and just wipe them down if you don't know where it came from. Even if you're using it, it's a good idea to, wipe everything that you use during the day and to wash any of the cups, glasses, dishes, or cutlery with nice hot water. There's lots of disinfectant soap you can use to clean that properly. Do not pick up magazines and newspapers in doctors' waiting rooms, staff kitchens, or on public transit. So don't touch other things that other people have been touching. So you see a magazine in your doctor's office and you pick it up and you read it, then somebody who was sick might have just been reading that, and now you've picked up the whatever they had on their hands and can get sick from it. Stay at home if you're sick to avoid spreading germs to other people. Another COVID one where we were really encouraged. Do not go to work if you're sick. If you do have to go out, put on a mask. Put on a mask. That way when you're sneezing or coughing, and especially if it's, you're spreading an airborne illness or through, droplets, then you are not going to go spread that to everybody else. Okay, we're on page 95 of lesson 12, and we're looking at the check your understanding questions. And kind of an interesting point here. Page 95, you don't have to do those three at the bottom of page 95. They are not included in the list on page 10. Let's just go have a quick look so you can understand what I'm talking about. If we go back to the textbook, you'll see on the screens page 10 of 27, lesson 12 key questions, and you'll see there that page 98 is when we're going to start looking at the questions. So you do not have to do the questions on page 95. So that's good to know. Okay, we'll go back to our oopsie, sorry about that. Going to go back to the textbook. Alrighty. So we're going to move over to page 96, foodborne illness and safe food handling practices. You'll see in figure 3.31 that there is a jar, a canned vegetable. I'd say that's beans, is by the look of it, green beans. And you'll see there it says botulism has sometimes been caused by eating improperly home canned foods like asparagus, green beans, and beets. So botulism is an illness that you get from food that's gone bad. And it can make you very sick. It causes diarrhea, cramping, nausea, fevers. It can be really bad. I've had it a few times. It's what we call food poisoning. I've had it when I've traveled, and I also had it when I was here in Canada. So I've had it both places. The one time I've already talked about when we were on our way to Colombia, and we stopped for a meal along the way to Thunder Bay, and my son wouldn't eat. He was under 2. He was just about to turn 2, and he instead ran up and down in the restaurant because he didn't really feel like eating. And we were really worried he didn't eat. But anyway, we got to the hotel room that night in Thunder Bay, and we began to get severely ill with all the things I just mentioned. And he was happy lying in bed watching a show about, I believe, monkeys or something like that. Totally healthy because he didn't have any supper. So that worked out really well. Botulism is caused by a bacteria, and it's can be caused by many different things. The bacteria could get into the food, and the food can be sitting too long. It can be in a jar like that. The bacteria is in the jar and then it sits. Those canned foods are supposed to last for months. So sometimes people spend months with that, and so it can be quite deadly. Um, there are very few cases each year nowadays, but in an extreme case of botulism, it can cause respiratory failure. It can even cause death. Um, it's very difficult to control foodborne illnesses because what sometimes happens, and this has happened a lot in the last few years, is a big company has food um, produced, packaged, whatever, at a food processing plant, and then it gets delivered all over the world, all over Canada, maybe. And as a result, everybody who is using, that's being delivered to gets sick, and they have to find it very quickly and then try to stop it. They'll put out an APB on like don't eat whatever it's been. I think we had a Caesar salad. What was that? Romaine lettuce. Um, there was melons. I think like cantaloupes, maybe. So it's happened in the last few years that we've had a few of these where there's been a case of these having a some sort of toxin in them. Um, okay, so the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, the CFIA, is in charge of setting rules for how food is processed and sold, and it's supposed to test the food products for safety. It warns the public if anything is unsafe. It's also takes care of food that's coming into Canada. That's called imported. Food that's imported. They make sure that it's also safe for Canadians to eat. However, bacteria can be very hard to kill, and sometimes they just survive the food processing. Um, so there's safe food handling courses you can take that teach you safe food handling practices, and they're very important if you're working in any industry where you're preparing and serving food. Okay, so what do they cover? Um, what you should buy. Okay, you need to be careful about the products you're buying in the first place, how you store them after they've been bought, how you handle them when you're preparing the food. So that's what I was talking about the cutting boards and your counters being all disinfected and clean. How you prepare the food. Um, it's really important that if you have something like raw meat, poultry, or seafood on your cutting board, for instance, that you don't have what's called cross contamination. So that's when on that same cutting board, maybe you are also preparing fruits and vegetables. And so the bacteria is now getting into things that maybe you're not going to cook the same way you would have cooked the meat. Also, just in the grocery cart itself and in your refrigerator, it's careful that you don't have the juices of those meats going into your vegetables or fruits. Many people now have separate compartments. They have then I think most new fridges, especially, have quite nice drawers or whatever that they store all the fruit and vegetables, and then your raw meats, etc., can go in a different part of your fridge so you don't have cross contamination. There's all sorts of information on that. And if you want to know anything, there's all sorts of safe food handling courses online. If you are working in that industry and you haven't had the safe food handling course, I think it's a rule that you do have to have it. Okay, we'll go more into that in just a minute. Let's just go over the information about the refrigerator. So, um, your fridge should be kept at a proper temperature setting. So if you look on the inside of your fridge, sometimes they're more fancy. My new fridge is fancier and it's got different settings depending on where in the fridge you got stuff. But anyway, it says that bacteria can grow in temperatures from 4 to 60 degrees Celsius. So you need to have your fridge below 4 degrees Celsius. Okay, that'll slow down the growth of bacteria. Freezing it at or below minus 18 degrees Celsius stops bacteria from growing. However, it doesn't kill the bacteria. You kill bacteria by cooking food until it reaches a certain temperature. So different foods have different safe temperatures. So a good thing to have in your kitchen is a food thermometer. Some of them are digital, which means you put it in and it gives you a reading on like a digital reading. Some of them have a little, like a typical thermometer where you just look at the scale and you see what temperature it's at. So if you look now at the top of page 97, you'll see there it's got all the different types of food and the temperature it needs to be cooked. These are internal cooking temperatures, so what you want to do is you want to put the thermometer inside the food that you think's cooked and just check the temperatures. This is particularly important for pork and chicken. Those are the two that tend to have more pathogens in them. However, it's good for hamburger, right? You have hamburger can contain. The problem with hamburger is that there's something called surface area. There's more chance for bacteria to get into the hamburger than just sitting, like, say, on the outside of a steak. Once you've ground it up, now you've got all sorts of areas that you can have the hamburger touch. So, yeah, you'll see it goes from beef, medium rare at 63 degrees Celsius, up to pork, which should be 71. There's no such thing as medium rare with pork. Chicken or turkey, 74 is what it should be cooked at. Those are just like little chicken breasts or whatever. But if you're cooking the whole chicken, you want to have it up to a temperature of 85. And there's some others listed there. That's at the top of page 97. So there's a beautiful diagram there, page 97, figure 3.32 at the bottom there, shows you safe food handling practices. Again, if you go online and do a course, I would really recommend it if you are in an industry that you're supposed to be on top of this. All right, so we have the cleaning, do not cross-contaminate, chilling it in the fridge or freezer, and then cooking it. And there's all sorts of different good practices there in figure 3.32. Okay, we're at the top of page 98. Now we're at our first set of questions, and your check your understanding questions. Page 98, number 1. How does a person contract a foodborne illness? It's worth 1 mark. And just go back and read on the foodborne illness section. We talked about food poisoning. How does that happen? That's worth 1 mark. Question 2, when considering safe food practices, what 4 categories of actions should always be considered? And if you go to the previous page 97, it's got a nice diagram there and it'll show you all the different ways that you can keep safe. Okay, the last thing we're going to talk about in our work on contaminants is indoor air quality. There's a lot of products nowadays that can help improve your indoor air quality. A lot of times we spend a lot of time indoors as Canadians because the weather might be, too cold to be outside. Also, we had a lot of time indoors this summer due to bad air quality, due to smoke. So there's a lot of things we can do to improve the indoor quality of our air. Remember that we can have indoor air pollution can be caused by mold, bacteria. Remember dust mites, the little organisms that live on our skin that help to break down skin. There could also be chemical pollutants in our atmosphere, things that you're using to clean with, maybe. And there can also be gas and particles coming from your furnace and gas stoves. Maybe somebody's smoking. Maybe there's something in your building materials, etc. So there's lots of different possibilities for indoor air pollutants. Health Canada is the name of the experts from the government that help tell us how to deal with this. They say there's 3 ways that we can improve indoor air quality. And so the first is source control. That means not letting the pollutants get in the first place. Do not smoke inside. Keep your home clean, dust and vacuum regularly. Keep it dry, use a humidifier. Most things like molds, bacteria grow really well when it's moist in the air, and you don't want that. Make sure all your appliances, especially your furnace, if it burns fuel, that it's working properly. Don't idle vehicles in a garage attached to your house. And install, don't use or install products that give off, emit bad chemicals. Try to reduce that so that you don't have any chemicals in your air that are not necessary. The second way to improve your indoor air quality is ventilation. So that means moving nice fresh air outside into your house and getting rid of the stale air in your house. So some ways you can do that is you can keep your windows and doors open, getting a nice cross current with air flowing through your house, using fans in the kitchen and bathroom, and having an HVAC system that brings in the nice fresh air and circulates and gets rid of the stale air in your house full of chemicals or mold and bacteria, whatever you got. And another one is an air cleaner. I have one in my house, and my daughter, I put it in my daughter's room who has asthma, hoping it could improve the air quality in her room. And I'm not sure if it does or doesn't, but I hope it does. And I turn it on right when she's about to come home. I should probably just run it the whole time for myself. Okay, we're on the review questions for lesson 12. They begin on page 101. The first lesson says, if you were babysitting a child for the day, describe 4 situations where you get him to wash his hands, and that is worth 2 marks. It says 3, but I will, hold on a sec, is that? Yeah, it says 3, but I will fix that and make sure that says 2 marks. Get a half mark each one. I'll fix that right now. Okay, question 2. Is there a difference between regular soap and antibacterial soap when it comes to removing microorganisms from your hands? We went over that one. It's worth 1 mark. Number 4 jumps down to 4. What are the symptoms someone will have when they contract a foodborne illness? And we went through some of those symptoms. That's worth 1 mark. Number 5, why do we put refrigerators below 4 degrees Celsius? What happens to our pathogens in the fridge when the temperature is below 4 degrees Celsius? That's worth 1 mark. Question 6, what is the best method for ensuring bacteria in food has been killed? There's one best method to kill bacteria, not to stop it from growing, but to actually kill it. Question 7, what steps can be taken to ensure foods do not become cross-contaminated? Remember we talked about that, and we said how if your steak has blood coming off of it, and then having fruits and vegetables sitting next to that, you're maybe not going to cook those like you would the steak, and so now they have bacteria. What can you do to prevent that? That's worth 3 marks. Question 7's worth 3 marks. Question 8, provide 2 examples of indoor air pollutants and 2 examples of indoor biological pollutants. Oh my, that's a lot. So that's worth 2 marks. Get a half mark for each one. And question 9, explain 3 ways Health Canada suggests for improving indoor air quality. Okie dokie. Again, these are all things easily done for you to stay healthy, to avoid getting sick. And these are all just in your own house things you can do. That is it for airborne contaminants and environmental contaminants and all of that. Next time in our class, we're going to start to talk about energy in our lives, where it comes from, how we use it, how it affects the environment as always. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you in next class.